Hi students, myself Satish Kumar Konidala, Assistant Professor, School of Pharmaceutical Sciences, Vignan Foundation for Science, Technology and Research, Guntur. In this video, I would like to explain about chemistry of antihypertensive agents. By watching this video, student can able to understand the chemistry, metabolic pathways, adverse effects and therapeutic values of antihypertensive drugs, and they can know the mode of action, structural activity relationship of different classes of antihypertensive drugs. And finally, they can able to know the chemical synthesis of some selected antihypertensive drugs. The contents of this video includes introduction to the hypertension, classification of antihypertensive agents, mechanism of action, structural activity relationship, and adverse effects of these antihypertensive agents. So finally, we are going to discuss about the synthesis, properties, and pharmacological actions of some important antihypertensive agents. Let us see one by one. Before going to discuss the contents of these antihypertensive agents, I want to give some brief introduction regarding the hypertension. As we know that hypertension is nothing but a physiological condition in which the blood pressure is increased than the normal limit. Okay, so in daily life we frequently heard about some of the persons get the BP. So the BP is nothing but the blood pressure. When we said they are getting the BP, that means that person are subjected to the condition in that there is an increase in the blood pressure than the normal limit. The normal limit for blood pressure is 120 by 80 mmHg. So in this, the 120 represents the systolic blood pressure and 80, so that is the denominator value, represents the diastolic blood pressure. Systolic blood pressure is nothing but the pressure which is present in the arteries when the heart pumping the blood. So at the time of blood pump by the heart, the pressure which is developed in the arteries is called as the systolic blood pressure. So that is denoted in the numerator in this value. In case of denominator value, that is 80, that represents the diastolic pressure. So the diastolic pressure is nothing but the pressure which is developed in the arteries between the heartbeats. So 80 represents the diastolic blood pressure. The diastolic blood pressure is nothing but the pressure which is developed in the arteries between the two heartbeats. So when there is a change in this normal limit, the person may subject to either higher blood pressure or lower blood pressure, or it is also called as hypertension or hypotension. So hypertension is nothing but the blood pressure increased than the normal limit, and hypotension is nothing but the blood pressure lower than the normal blood pressure which is maintained in the arteries of a normal person. And coming to the symptoms, so generally in case of hypertension, so there is no symptoms are observed for a longer period of time. So that means it is a silent condition, so silent physiological conditions. So up to years, even decades also, there is no symptoms are developed for the hypertension. And when there is a severe hypertension condition is achieved, in that case we can observe some of the symptoms like headache, dizziness, visual disturbances, blood in the urine, nose bleeding, heart pain, chest pain. This type of symptoms can be observed when the person has the severe hypertension condition. What will happen when the blood pressure is increased or when the person having a severe hypertension? Severe hypertension may lead to different type of conditions or diseases or disorders. That may include heart attack, heart failure, stroke, vision loss, kidney failure or kidney diseases, sexual dysfunction, some of the arterial diseases like atherosclerosis or angina. So these are some complications which can observe when the person is subjected to hypertension for a longer period of time. For reducing the hypertension conditions, we will use some methods and treatments. So some methods, like some of them preferred for relaxation or yoga, or some other psychological relaxation process. Some of the situations may require the treatment. The treatment includes utilization of the drugs, and that drugs are called as antihypertensive agents. So the drugs which can be able to treat the hypertension condition are called as antihypertensive drugs. This is about the general introduction regarding the hypertension. Next we will discuss about the contents of this video one by one.
Coming to the definition of hypertension, so it is a physiological condition where there is an increase in the arterial blood pressure above the normal. So the definition of the hypertension is nothing but it is a physiological condition where there is a increase in arterial blood pressure above the normal. So as we know that the normal blood pressure is nothing but 120 by 80 mmHg. In that 120 by 80, 120 represents the systolic blood pressure and 80 is nothing but diastolic blood pressure. When the person develops blood pressure greater than the 140 by 90 mmHg, then we can say that the person has the hypertension. And here the blood pressure is nothing but the force applied on the artery walls. And another term, that is the hypotension, so which is nothing but the physiological condition that there is a decrease in blood pressure than the normal blood pressure. If the blood pressure of the person is decreased below the 90 by 60 mmHg, then the person is hypotensive in nature. The hypertension is divided into two types: primary hypertension, or it is also called as essential hypertension; secondary hypertension, or it is also called as malignant hypertension. In case of primary hypertension, most of the cases are unknown causes. In most of the situations, the causes for primary hypertension is unknown. In case of primary hypertension, so we cannot identify what is the cause for this, but we can consider the following factors which may lead to the primary hypertension. So that includes dietary intake of more sodium or less potassium. So the first one is a dietary intake of more sodium or less potassium. And in some of the situations, the primary hypertension may be produced by hereditary or on aging. There may be another reason that may lead to the primary hypertension is nothing but decreasing the synthesis of vascular nitric oxide. This nitric oxide is generally useful for vasodilation. So when it is decreased, then there is a vasoconstriction occurs that may lead to the hypertension situation. In case of secondary hypertension, the causes for the secondary hypertension is identified, and they are of different types. Includes renal disease, that means chronic glomerular nephritis, adrenal disease like pheochromocytoma, that means tumor on the adrenal medulla. So when there is a tumor on the adrenal medulla, which can able to secrete the excessive catecholamines like adrenaline or noradrenaline, and this may lead to increasing the vasoconstriction and some other adrenal disease like hyperaldosteronism. So this is also leads to development of secondary hypertension. And muscular disorders like contraction of the aorta, renal artery stenosis, that is nothing but the narrowing of artery, toxemia of pregnancy, so that is nothing but the presence of toxins in the bloodstream during the pregnancy, and encephalitis, so that is nothing but the inflammation of the brain, and increased intracranial pressure, thyrotoxosis, that is nothing but toxic condition which is caused by the overactivity of the thyroid gland, and utilization of the oral contraceptives. So the causes for the secondary hypertension may include renal diseases, adrenal diseases, and muscular disorders. And here we can see the pictorial representation of causes for hypertension. That includes renal disease, genetic disorders, drugs, alcohol, licorice, oversynthesis of hormone, arterial diseases, and some of the unknown causes can able to produce the hypertension. Among all these, 95% of the hypertension can be produced by the unknown causes. So based upon the range of blood pressure, the hypertension can categorize it into different types. If the systolic blood pressure is less than the 120 and diastolic blood pressure is less than 80 mmHg, the condition is called as optimal blood pressure. And if the systolic blood pressure is 120 to 129 mmHg and diastolic blood pressure is 80 to 84 mmHg, then that condition is called as normal blood pressure condition or normal condition. And if the systolic blood pressure is 130 to 139 and diastolic blood pressure is 85 to 89 mmHg, then that condition is called as high normal blood pressure. High normal blood pressure. And if the systolic blood pressure is 140 to 159 and diastolic blood pressure is 90 to 99 mmHg, then that condition is called as grade 1 hypertension. And if the systolic blood pressure is 160 to 179 and diastolic blood pressure is 100 to 109, and that condition is called as grade 2 hypertension. And if the systolic blood pressure is greater than the 180 and diastolic blood pressure is greater than 110 mmHg, then that condition is called as grade 3 hypertension. And if the systolic blood pressure is greater than 140 and diastolic blood pressure is less than 90, then that condition is called as isolated systolic hypertension. So that means only the systolic blood pressure is increased and the diastolic blood pressure is maintained as the normal, and that condition is called as isolated systolic hypertension. That condition is called as the isolated systolic hypertension. And for better understanding how the blood pressure is developed in our body, so we have to observe the renin-angiotensin-aldosterone system. So there is a renin-angiotensin-aldosterone system is maintained in our body. When you understand this renin-angiotensin-aldosterone system, so we can easily understand how the hypertension is produced in our body. So as we know that, so there is a pressure which is developed in our arteries or vasculature, thereby the blood pressure is, thereby the hypertension is produced. When the vasculature or artery is subjected to stenosis or contraction, and this contraction, the vasoconstriction can be produced by the angiotensin 2. So this angiotensin 2 is produced by the angiotensin 1, and this angiotensin 1 is produced from the angiotensinogen. The angiotensinogen is produced from the liver, and this angiotensinogen is converted into angiotensin 1 by the action of renin, which is produced from the kidney cells. When there is a decrease in renal perfusion to the juxtaglomerular apparatus, then it stimulates the production of renin from the juxtaglomerular cells, and this produced renin will convert the angiotensinogen to angiotensin 1. Then after this angiotensin 1 is converted into angiotensin 2. This angiotensin 2 will act on angiotensin 2 receptors. So that are 81, 82, 83 and 84. And these receptors are present in different types of tissues, and they can produce the actions like sympathetic activity, particularly 81 receptor. So 81 receptor particularly present in all these type of tissues, and this can mediate the responses like sympathetic activity. So that means the sympathetic secretion is increased, tubular sodium chloride reabsorption, water reabsorption, and also produce the potassium excretion. In case of adrenal gland, this angiotensin 2 will increase the production of aldosterone, and at the arteries it produces the vasoconstriction and then increase the blood pressure. And at the pituitary gland, it produces the antidiuretic hormone. So it produces the antidiuretic hormone, thereby the water absorption at the collecting duct is increased. So that means these are some actions of the angiotensin 2. So it can produce the sympathetic activity by increasing the sympathetic secretions, and at the glomerulus it increases the reabsorption of sodium chloride and water and increases the excretion of sodium. And in kidney it increases the secretion of aldosterone, and in case of arteries it shows the vasoconstriction action and thereby it increases the blood pressure. And in case of pituitary gland, it increases the secretion of antidiuretic hormone, and that is responsible for increasing the reabsorption of water at collecting duct. All these actions collectively may lead to development of hypertension. So that means when you see this first action, that is a sympathetic activity or increasing the sympathetic secretions. So when the sympathetic secretions like adrenaline, noradrenaline, dopamine, so that may lead to vasoconstriction, or it shows the cardiac or arterial hypertrophy. So that means they can increasing the heart rate or heart pumping capacity, and thereby that lead to the increasing the pressure in blood vessels or arteries. And tubular reabsorption of sodium chloride and water may also develop the high pressure in arteries. And the release of aldosterone may also lead to increasing the reabsorption of water at distal converter T. And when there is a increasing the antidiuretic hormone, that may also lead to increasing the reabsorption of water from the collecting duct, and thereby it increases the volume in arteries, and that may lead to development of. So the actions of angiotensin II can ultimately lead to development of hypertension in different ways. So for that reason, so if you want to treat the hypertension conditions, we have to suppress the action of angiotensin II. So we have to suppress the action of angiotensin II by blocking this one or by inhibiting the angiotensin II protein. Or if you block the renin action, and that may decrease the conversion of angiotensinogen to angiotensin I. So that may lead to decreasing the hypertension condition. And another way of treating the hypertension is nothing but utilization of ACE inhibitors. When you inhibit this angiotensin converting enzyme, so that may lead to decreasing the production of angiotensin II from angiotensin I. So these are the different ways to treating the hypertension. So first one is directly inhibiting the angiotensin II at their receptor, and second one is inhibition of renin action, and third one is inhibition of angiotensin converting enzyme. So these are the three ways to reduce the hypertension. So in this picture we can see the production of hypertension. So that means sympathetic stimulation, hypotension, or decreased sodium delivery, so which will stimulate the kidney to produce the renin, and that produced renin will convert the angiotensinogen to angiotensin I, and this will be converted into angiotensin II by the action of angiotensin converting enzyme. So this angiotensin converting enzyme is generally obtained from the lungs and kidney. So the cells of lungs and kidney will produce the angiotensin converting enzyme, and this will convert the angiotensin I to angiotensin II. And this angiotensin II will act on angiotensin II receptors. So there are 81, 82, 83, and 84. So when you see the actions of particularly 81, it can able to produce the cardiac and vascular hypertrophy, systemic vasoconstriction, increased blood volume through different ways. That means from the increasing secretion of aldosterone, increasing the secretion of antidiuretic hormone, or increasing the reabsorption at different sites of the nephron. So that may lead to increasing blood volume. The drugs which are used to treat the hypertensive condition are called as antihypertensive drugs, and these drugs are classified based upon their chemical nature. So first we'll see the classification of antihypertensive drugs based upon their chemical nature. First one is the pyrrolidine derivatives. Examples of pyrrolidine derivatives are captopril, lisinopril, enalapril, and ramipril. Second one is the imidazoline derivatives. Example is clonidine. Third one is benzothiazide derivatives. Example is diazoxide. Fourth one is the guanidine derivatives. Examples are guanethidine, guanabens, guanatril. Fifth one is the pyridine derivatives. Example is nifedipine, amlodipine, isradipine. And sixth one is the quinazoline derivatives. Example is trazodone, tetrazocin. And seventh one is thalazine derivatives. Example is hydralazine. Next one is a piperidine and pyridine derivative. Example is minoxidil. Tetrazole derivatives. So in that it is also having the imidazole ring. Examples are losartan, valsartan, irbesartan. And the tetrazole derivatives which are having the benzimidazole ring, examples are candesartan, telmisartan. And some of the miscellaneous antihypertensive drugs are nothing but methyl dopa and reserpine. This is the chemical classification of antihypertensive drugs. And coming to the classification based upon the mechanism of action, these antihypertensive drugs are classified as follows. So that one is centrally acting drugs. Examples are methyl dopa, clonidine, guanabenzine, guanafensine. Second one is drugs acting on peripheral sympathetic nerves. So that is nothing but they can affect these peripheral sympathetic nerves. Examples are Rauwolfia alkaloids, includes reserpine, guanethidine, guanadrel. Alpha adrenergic blockers. Third one is the alpha adrenergic blockers. Examples are prazosin, terazosin. Fourth one is the beta adrenergic blockers. Examples are beta adrenergic blockers. Examples are propranolol, atenolol, temolol. Fifth one is vasodilators. These vasodilators are again subdivided into directly acting. The second one is the calcium channel blockers. In case of directly acting vasodilators, some of them are acting on arteries and some of them are act on both arteries and veins. Example for drugs which are directly acting on arteries are hydrazine, diazoxide, minoxidil. And example for drugs acting directly on arteries and veins are sodium nitroprusside. And example for the calcium channel blockers are verapamil, nifedipine, amlodipine, isradipine. The drugs which will inhibit the angiotensin converting enzymes are captopril, lisinopril, enalapril, benzapril, quinapril, and ramipril. And some of the drugs will act against the angiotensin are losartan, valsartan, irbesartan, candesartan, and telmisartan. And last one is the diuretics. Example for diuretics are chlorothiazide, hydrochlorothiazide, furosemide, and amiloride. So this is about the classification of anti-hypertensive drugs based upon their mechanism of action. And next we'll discuss about the chemistry of these antihypertensive drugs. First we'll discuss about the angiotensin converting enzyme inhibitors. So examples of angiotensin converting enzyme inhibitors are captopril, lisinopril, enalapril. So they are also called as ACE inhibitors. All prils comes under this category. When you observe the chemical structure of captopril, it consisting of a pyrrole ring, and to this pyrrole ring there is a carboxylic acid is attached. So that means in all the prils there is a common basic structure, that is the pyrrole carboxylic acid. So in captopril, lisinopril, enalapril, we observe that pyrrole carboxylic acid as the basic moiety. And to this pyrrole carboxylic acid, so there is a carbonyl group is attached. So there is a nitrogen which is present in the pyrrole ring. To this nitrogen, carbonyl moiety is attached. Then after it is having different substitutions based upon the type of ACE inhibitor. So in case of captopril, to this carbonyl moiety, sulfahydryl group is attached to the carbonyl group through carbon chain. In case of lisinopril, so there is a carbonyl group is attached to the nitrogen which is present in the pyrrole ring, and to this carbonyl moiety there is a methyl group, and this methyl group is attached to the carboxylate group, and between these two, that means between the carboxylate and carbonyl group, so there is a propyl amine group is attached to carbon. So there is a propyl amine group is attached to the carbon which is present between the carboxylate and carbonyl group. Then after it is also having some phenyl substance through carbon chain to this carboxylate ion. In case of enalapril, consisting the basic structure, there is a pyrrole carboxylic acid, and to this nitrogen which is present in the pyrrole ring, it consisting of a carbonyl group, and the carbonyl group is attached to the carboxylate group through the through the methyl group, and it is also having phenyl substrate which is attached to the carboxylate ion through carbon chain. In case of benazapyl, it consisting of a benzaziridine group as the basic moiety, and in case of phenolapyl, it consisting of phenolene as the basic moiety. So in case of benazapyl, it consisting of benzaziridine as the basic moiety, in case of phenolapyl, consisting of phenolene as the basic moiety. Carboxylic group and carboxylate group in their chemical structure. And here we can see the basic structure of ACE inhibitors, that is a angiotensin converting enzymes. So it consisting of a basic ring, and this basic ring nitrogen is attached to carbonyl group, and then after there is a methyl group is present between the carbonyl group and carboxylate ion, and this methyl group having some substitutions. So in case of lisinopril, it is propyl amine substitution, but in most of the cases it is the methyl group. And this carboxylate group also having phenyl substitution which is attached to the carboxylate group through the carbon chain. These are the examples of other ACE inhibitors: ramipyl, phenolapyl, trandalopyl, sprapyl, moixipyl. So these all are having different substances at R1, R2, and the ACE inhibitors are chemically subdivided into three types: sulfahydryl groups, sulfahydryl ACE inhibitors, dicarboxylate ACE inhibitors, phosphate ACE inhibitors. Example for sulfahydryl ACE inhibitors are captopril. Example for sulfahydryl ACE inhibitor is captopril. Example for dicarboxylate ACE inhibitors are enalapril, lisinopril. Example for phosphate ACE inhibitor is fosinopril. So when you see in the chemical structure of captopril, fosinopril, enalapril, in case of captopril, only one carboxyl group is present, and it is also having sulfahydryl group. That's why it is categorized under the sulfahydryl ACE inhibitors. And in case of enalapril, it consisting of two carboxylic groups. So this one and this one, two carboxylic groups. That's why they are considered as the dicarboxylate ACE inhibitors. So all enalapril, lisinopril, primapyl, so these all are comes under this dicarboxylate ACE inhibitors. In case of fosinopril, so instead of carboxylate, it consisting of phosphate group. So instead of carboxylate, it consisting of phosphate group. That's why it is categorized as the phosphate ACE inhibitors. So example is fosinopril. So instead of carboxylate ion, it consisting of phosphate group. So when you see in the mechanism of action in case of ACE inhibitors, the ACE inhibitors can inhibit the angiotensin converting enzyme, and which is generally obtained from the lungs and kidney. The ACE inhibitors can inhibit the angiotensin converting enzyme, thereby the conversion of angiotensin 1 to angiotensin 2 is inhibited. So the actions of the angiotensin 2 at their receptors are blocked. In this way, the vasoconstriction and the increased blood volume are prevented, thereby the hypertension condition is reduced. I am repeating once again the mechanism of action in case of angiotensin converting enzyme inhibitors. The ACE inhibitors can inhibit the angiotensin converting enzyme, thereby the conversion of angiotensin 1 to angiotensin 2 is inhibited. So when it is inhibited, the actions of angiotensin 2 are also inhibited, thereby we can reduce the hypertension condition. And coming to the structural activity relationship of angiotensin converting enzyme inhibitors. So when you see the basic structure of angiotensin converting enzyme inhibitors, they consisting of basic ring, so which is having a nitrogen, so that is the pyrrole ring generally present in the angiotensin converting enzyme inhibitors, and this nitrogen which is present in the pyrrole ring or the basic ring is attached to the carbonyl group, and this carbonyl group is attached to the zinc binding group. So either it is a sulfonyl group or carboxylate group or phosphate group, and this will be attached to the carbonyl group through the methyl group, and which is also having some substitutions. Either it is a methyl group, or in case of lisinopril it is the propyl amine group. And in case of lisinopril it is nothing but the propyl amine group. And this zinc binding group, so zinc binding groups, the groups can able to bind the zinc which is present in the angiotensin converting enzyme. So the angiotensin converting enzyme has the zinc, and to this zinc the groups which are present in the angiotensin converting enzyme inhibitors will bind. So thereby they can form the interaction between the angiotensin converting enzyme inhibitor and angiotensin converting enzyme. And this zinc binding groups also having the phenyl group as substituent through the carbon chain. And coming to the structural activity relationship, the basic ring which is present in the angiotensin converting enzyme inhibitor must contain the carboxylic acid to show their AC inhibitor activity. And the ring should be larger, hydrophobic in nature, thereby it can increasing the potency. So with the ring having the high hydrophobic nature, then it shows the high potency of angiotensin converting enzyme inhibition. The zinc binding group, that is nothing but the sulfhydryl group, carboxylate group or phosphate group, are required to stabilize the interaction between the enzyme and inhibiting molecule or inhibiting drug. So in case of sulfhydryl groups, so these sulfhydryl groups drugs has the shorter duration of action than the other carboxylate and phosphate groups containing drugs. And the substitution at this position, that is nothing but the N-butylamine in dicarboxylate, or substitution at the methyl group, so which is required to show the oral bioavailability or orally active. This is about the structural activity relationship of angiotensin converting enzyme inhibitors. And coming to the adverse effects of these AC inhibitors, they can produce the adverse effects like dry cough, dysgeusia, skin rashes and fetal toxicity. So up to now we discussed about the antihypertensive drugs. In that we discussed about the introduction to the hypertension, classification of hypertension, and how the hypertension can be produced. In that case we discussed about the RAS system, that is renin, angiotensin, aldosterone system. Then after we discussed about the classification of antihypertensive drugs. In that we discussed about the angiotensin converting enzyme inhibitors regarding their mechanism, including their mechanism of action, structural activity relationship. In next class we will discuss about the remaining classes of antihypertensive drugs along with their mechanism of action and structural activity relationship. Thank you.